There we go. Okay, we are officially live. Okay. Okay, I'll say the opening prayer. Our dear kind Heavenly Father, as we come humbly before this day, we are very grateful for the opportunity to be together and to be able to meet as a group. And we're very grateful for this technology that we are able to meet, even though we are across different states and even different countries. And we're very grateful for the opportunity to meet together. And please bless and guide our group, that we can be successful and that we can study this material and learn from it. And we ask for thy blessing, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. So, just brief synopsis, even though we kind of all know it. Thomas Green, it's kind of what this is about. Him and his boss, Frank Davis, are kind of having a little spat. They both disagree on work styles and market projections. Green even believes that his goals, Frank Davis's goals, are off, and believes he can prove it. But Green's situation is one in which his failure to adapt his work style and fully understand the demands and boundaries of his new position may lead to his discharge. So that's what we're kind of working with. And then you also have, I can't remember her first name, but it's McDonald. I can't remember what her first name is, for whatever reason.
Shannon.
Yeah, Shannon.
Yeah, she's the vice president.
Oh, good. Jacqueline, you're back.
Yeah, my internet. I had to put it on my iPad, but I'm here. We're good.
Yeah, you're good. No worries.
I'm driving, Jacqueline.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that before I got disconnected. So sorry for the trouble.
Yeah, so Shannon McDonald, she's helped Green kind of move up real quick, and she's kind of put her neck out there for him, and now she's starting to distance herself from him a little bit just because of this little spat between him and Frank Davis. So what are the key issues? What are we looking at the issues in this?
One of the key issues I put is he was eager for the position, but he doesn't have the experience he doesn't have the experience for the job. It's like he posted, he said, look at me, I can do the job, I can do the job, I can do the job. But when you actually sit down and look at his resume, he has not had any experience in that field.
Yeah. Well, and I think on top of that, he isn't listening to people who have done his job. He's just kind of blowing off Frank Davis, which, I mean, usually isn't good.
Right. Yeah, but I think it's kind of a two-way street. I don't think that Frank has not given him the benefit of the doubt at all, and has kind of just, within the first month, he had a full list of all these things that he was doing wrong, yet he never bothered to address them beforehand. So, Thomas Green was really thrown off guard to find out that he wasn't performing well.
Well, and I don't feel like they can really hold it all against him, because I feel like they promoted him so quickly. And what's her name? Shannon McDonald, whatever. She said, Shannon. Yeah, she even admitted when she's promoting him, like, I'm kind of taking a chance on you, and I hope that you'll seek guidance from more seasoned managers. But it wasn't like, hey, we're doing this, so because you don't have the experience, you need to talk to them. You need to listen to their advice. It was just kind of like, well, we're taking a chance. Let's see how it goes. But then they were upset when he didn't perform up to their expectations.
Well, but didn't somebody say in there the quote that due to what's his name did not get to pick who he wanted, you're going to have to deal with the fallout of that? So they kind of threw him under the bus to begin with.
Yeah, Frank Davis wasn't able to choose the person that he wanted or something like that.
Yeah. Almost there. So. Because there's the fallout.
Yeah.
There's the fallout of that big time that he didn't get to choose the next person.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think kind of put them, like, started them off on the wrong foot right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't, you know, Frank didn't provide any training. It sounds that he kind of introduced them to some of their big accounts, but that was the extent of it. So
Right.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
No, you're gonna. I was gonna say. So, with along those same lines, would you have hired him? Would you have hired Tom Green if you were Shannon, even knowing Frank Davis was going to be upset?
I just feel like she should have pulled Frank aside or allowed him to be part of the interview process, especially since she was filling his old position. He would have, you know, key ideas and concepts as to what the job entailed.
Yeah.
And it would have been just really good for her to, you know, reference him and include him in the process. You know, she is the vice president. It sounds like she had the power to hire. So ultimately it was most likely her decision, but she should have consulted Frank at the very least.
I agree. I think it probably would have gone over a lot smoother had she said, "Hey, I really like this candidate. I want to hire him. What do you think?" And I think even if he had his hesitations, he at least would have felt like he had at least some say in it because she asked his opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So who do we think is mostly at fault for the state of the current situation? That is an actual question that they've asked.
I kind of have to say, my personal opinion is that it's kind of Thomas. Even though I know they kind of threw him into this and they didn't train him, I still believe that he could have done more. I mean, Sharon even said, "Hey, I hope you seek out the more seasoned managers." And I think he really should have taken that seriously and done so. And so I think throughout when he was getting upset with Frank, instead of maybe listening to Frank and realizing, oh, maybe I could improve on some things, he just got kind of defensive and kind of went behind Frank's back and started talking to others. And I think there was something in there in particular that said, like, it was Thomas kind of speaking. He said, yeah, and even the other managers agree with me. So he's kind of being, I don't know, I just feel like it was a little childish, and I think he was just not handling it very well. So I think Thomas could have gone about it a better way.
So with that thought in mind, what actions could Thomas Green take?
Now, or what should he have done?
What should he have done in that situation?
Well, I think, like I said, he should have listened to McDonald and kind of gone and actually gotten advice from his superiors and just done a better job about taking what's the orders from Frank Davis, and just trying to be a little more humble and just kind of listen to his superiors rather than just get upset if they're not happy with how he's doing things.
Yeah, I have to agree, Maddie. I feel like he and Frank have very different types of work styles.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it said in there that they both kind of avoid each other. Thomas is kind of going out of his way to make sure he doesn't have to, you know, converse with Frank after everything happened. And I just feel like between their different work styles, they could really come together to make something better work rather than just avoiding a conflict. And so
right.
I definitely feel like Thomas, rather than going behind his back and speaking to other people and complaining, he needs to go directly to Frank and have a heart-to-heart discussion about each of their views. And then at the same time, I feel like Thomas needs to recognize that Frank is his superior and that Frank wants him to have, you know, his Outlook schedule updated. If he needs him to return calls promptly and turn in reports, then Thomas needs to honor that and respect it.
Yeah. Is Laura, are you still with us?
No, she dropped.
Oh, okay. I just
Oh.
hadn't heard her in a second. I was like, wait a second.
Also, I feel like Thomas kind of had this over reliance or overconfidence that Shannon was going to back him up.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think he probably took that for granted, or maybe it went to his head that he felt a little bit invincible. You know, this new job, he was able to land it. He's excited. He's going to kind of do things his own way. And then, you know, he disagrees with Frank in that meeting. Things get off to a bad start. But I think all along he just thought that he was invincible because Shannon McDonald was going to back him up. And that wasn't necessarily the case.
Yeah. I would have to agree with both of you. I feel like, we just lost Madeline.
Maddie too. Oh,
Madeline's back.
Woo. Okay.
Sorry, guys, my internet cut out.
Yeah, you're good.
Having the same problem.
Yeah, good. But no, I'd have to agree with both of you. I feel like Thomas Green, I feel like he came in a little too overconfident. He was a little, I guess this is how me and my friends put it, cocky. He was a little too cocky.
Yeah.
And thought that he was really going to do well. He thought that, yeah, I'm this big shot. He didn't listen to the advice of Shannon and really go after those seasoned managers. And so the next section is, so how does the power and office politics come into play in these situations?
I feel like there's definitely a struggle and a fight there for power between Frank and Thomas.
Right.
Their interactions definitely, I would say, be interpreted as struggles and authority struggles. Plus, I don't know. I feel like Shannon, when she tells Thomas, "Oh, you're kind of walking into a tricky situation. You're probably going to have a fallout." Like, it was a total setup, and she didn't really, you know, pull the two of them in together to kind of clear the air before. She just let them walk into it, and that was kind of weird to me. I felt like that was a weird power play. I feel like it undermined Frank's authority a little bit.
Okay. So with that, do we think each individual wants something different, or are they just going about it a very different way?
I think they're going about it just a different way. It comes into that different working styles of, you know, some are more aggressive and some focus more on sales, and like they could take the strengths of each other to combine and really make something powerful out of this. But right now they're just stalling each other out.
Yeah. So what are each of like Shannon McDonald's, Frank Davis's, Thomas Green's, what are their conflict styles? How do they handle this conflict?
Well, Thomas is avoiding it. And then going around and speaking to other people behind Frank's back. So he's complaining. I feel like Frank. Sorry, Maddie, go ahead.
No, what were you saying? What?
I was going to say, I think that Frank, out of the three of them, has probably handled it the most mature, just in that he's documenting everything and sending the emails to Shannon and trying to have, you know, the performance meetings. But I feel like there's a little bit of spite there. He's still irritated by the hire without his, you know, consent, I guess. And so he's not really giving Thomas, I think, a fair chance to make some changes. He just kind of blindsided him with both of these meetings and the list of things that are going wrong.
Yeah. Madeline, did you have something to add? You had kind of talked there for a second, so.
Oh, I was just saying, and I just feel like Thomas Green just kind of avoids it, but then talks behind Frank's back about it. So, like, to Frank's face, he kind of acts like, okay, whatever, but then he doesn't really address them to Frank.
Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit. What should Frank and Thomas do now?
I feel like Frank needs to just extend the opportunity, like, for some training, for more guidance. I don't know. I feel like he's already written him off in his mind, though.
Yeah.
He's already like, hey, this guy's not working out. We're going to have to think about rehiring. So maybe just coming back to try to be open-minded and give Thomas a fair chance. Maybe recognize that he had a biased opinion based on Shannon's, overstepping him.
Yeah.
And realize that maybe he should give him a fair shot, because Thomas is talented and he could bring a lot to the company, but Frank's not really giving him the time of day to do that.
Well, and I also feel like Thomas, needs to kind of humble himself and just kind of come to Frank as well, because I feel like they both kind of just avoid each other and just go to Shannon instead of just, because Thomas, he could be talking to Frank Davis, a guy that was just in his job, instead of blowing off Thomas has been blowing off every little meeting that they've had. Just kind of like, well, that's just different style. I don't need to listen to that. And I feel like he just needs to humble himself a little bit and say, hey, like, this guy was successful in this position. Maybe I should listen to this.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think Thomas has some things he needs to work out just by being more open and listening. But I feel like Shannon or Sharon?
Shannon.
Okay, I feel like Shannon and Frank just really need to be more candid about what they expect from Thomas. Like I said, I think they just kind of threw him, and I think they just need to say, hey, I know it kind of sounded more like a recommendation that you talked to and listen to your more seasoned managers, but in reality, that's what you need to do. That's what we want you to do, and that's what our expectations are.
Yeah. Okay.
I also feel like Green could have handled the disagreement he had during the meeting just in a more tactful manner, instead of just outright, I disagree. He's new to that environment, and in the book that we're reading about conflict can be a good thing. It can drive the group to find better solutions, but he just kind of shut down Frank in front of everybody, and he's the new guy, and it just came off disrespectful, and he just maybe could be more tactful about that in the future. That was one of the things I thought he could improve upon.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it should have been done right there in the meeting.
Yeah.
So is there any way that they each individually could kind of come together and repair this whole situation?
I feel so. I feel like they need to create like a safe environment where communication thrives, because I feel like Frank and Thomas are misfiring, and I feel like, I imagine Shannon just kind of being like a puppeteer. Like, she knew this was going to happen, but didn't really try to do anything to dissolve it from the get-go. So maybe the three of them need to sit down and establish some ground rules about how the meeting should go, but try to, level the playing field and discuss the true problems.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I feel like Thomas, there's just something there that, for whatever, I don't know if it's overconfidence. I just don't know. I don't know if it's pride, but for whatever reason, he kind of goes into these meetings looking to kind of, I guess, looking for the issues, looking to say, oh, well, this is why he's wrong, so now I don't have to listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
And because that first meeting wasn't great that they had about the little Outlook calendar, and so that wasn't a great meeting to start out with. And I think they both could have handled that meeting better, but because of that meeting, it kind of set the tone of let's just kind of not listen to each other and look for our faults, and as soon as we find that fault, we don't have to listen to them anymore. It's just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I initially thought that too, but then I was rereading, and the two things that stuck out to me was when Frank called Thomas in for that first employee review. It was only 1 month after he had been there, and It said that Thomas was completely blindsided and shocked by the detailed list that Frank had prepared for all the things that were going wrong. And then it said that they discussed it for 2 hours. So I tried to think, like, if I were in a new position, I'd only been there 1 month, but then I have to sit through 2 hours of all the things that I'm doing wrong, I would probably walk away pretty disheartened and, you know, so I feel like I probably would have responded a little bit similar to Thomas too. I probably would have gone into avoidance mode, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but I guess I can't help but, you know, agree and see why he did that.
Yeah, I mean, I see why he did it, but it's like, at this point, it's like this is going to affect like both of their jobs. I mean, this very easily affect Shannon's job as well. I mean, this is someone that she put her neck out for, and now that
blow up.
This is a very bad situation for all three of them. So, and so Thomas does this thing. They call it managing up, meaning the lower manager is trying to manage the upper manager, as you can see Thomas doing.
Yeah.
So how can we apply that at our own jobs, and how can we make sure we, I guess, do that more tactfully?
Well, I think it comes to.
Did she cut out?
I think so. No,
sorry. Sorry, what was that?
No, Jacqueline's still here.
Sorry, no, my mic cut out. I couldn't hear anything. So
okay.
Sorry. I'm back now.
Anyway, what were you saying, Jacqueline?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I think it just comes down to being mature enough to go one-on-one with your superior. Like Thomas could have, after that meeting, gone in and sat down with Frank and say, you know, this goal feels really aggressive for me. I know that you just were in this position, but you know, how are your expectations going to become a reality? Like, what ideas do you have to really make this goal obtainable? You know, but Thomas, he wrote it off from the very beginning. He thought it was completely unrealistic and stated that, rather than trying to get Frank's one-on-one judgment of how to make that happen.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you ask the question one more time?
Yeah. So how can managing up be applied at work, but I would say more tactfully, like better applied at work instead of the situation that we had?
Right. Yeah, I'd have to agree with Jacqueline. I think it could just be done in a more respectful way. I think it'd be hard for a boss to argue with you if you did it professionally and went up to them and set aside a separate meeting. So instead of bringing it up in a meeting in front of everyone, if you made sure it was just the two of you speaking, and you just remained respectful and professional, I think it'd be hard for someone to get that upset. I mean, they might, but I think it'd be a lot easier for them to see your point of view than if you're doing it in a way that's just to prove your point.
Yeah. So what are the principles of power within an organizational structure?
What are the principles?
Yeah, principles of power.
A principle of power. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, does it give any more explanation?
No, it doesn't. That's why I thought that was a super interesting question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Is anyone else confused by it, or is it just me?
No, I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around it. If I had to apply a principle to power, I would say that, you know, in most business places, there is a hierarchy, a chain of command, and you're expected to follow the person that's right above you, and so forth. Yeah. So I guess that would be a principle of power, is you always look to your next person. And then, you know, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I actually was thinking the same thought. I would agree. That's the only thing that I can really think to apply a principle with.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, they didn't give us like any like examples, and so that's kind of what I thought as well. Just, well, you just follow your manager and you help each other, just kind of set those goals and meet those goals. So
yeah, I'm kind of like, I feel like at least in my work experience, I'm always a yes man. Like if my manager asked me to do something, I did it, and I did it the way that they wanted. And if it was something that really concerned me and I felt like I needed to ask questions, then perhaps I would. But
Right.
there was always that respect of a line of authority, I guess.
yeah.
So
So how do office politics come into play in many of the in many organizations?
I think it can definitely be like whoever is most liked, that generally is listened to, or kind of like quote unquote popular. I think that tends to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Jacqueline, do you have anything to add?
yeah, I was trying to think of that quote. I don't have the book in front of me, but the book that we're reading right now talked about office politics and how the difference is saying things to get a desired response out of people versus what's truly at the heart of it or what's truly wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find an idea or an example. I think you brought it up, Maddie, where Thomas was speaking to other managers and tried to say, oh, well, they're all backing me up. That was a play of power, office politics, to make it look like he is the victim here, and that Frank
Right.
is just out to get him, and he's trying to provide evidence that is true because all these other managers are backing him up. And that's a good example, I think, of the office politics that are at play in this office.
Right. And like trying to get everyone on his side.
Yeah, definitely some ally building that he's trying to do there.
Yeah.
I know. I'd have to agree with both of you. I guess I have a sister and her boyfriend, I guess, who they didn't realize office politics. My sister, I mean, unluckily, I would say, didn't work until she was, in her 20s. And when she started to work, she realized that office politics, there is politics in the office. She thought that, oh, well, I'll just get into this job and, things will go great. It won't be like, it won't be like high school, basically. It won't be like high school. It won't be like, other things where you kind of have to be well liked. You kind of have to play the field as well. And she kind of found that out. And so now her boyfriend knew that as well. And so now her and her boyfriend's main goal is just to not work. And so it's just kind of interesting.
Avoid it altogether.
Yeah, exactly. And so their goal, they're kind of in the mini house kind of people, and that's their plan, is to get a mini house on some land and just only work part-time, just so they don't have to deal with that. So,
well, it's one way to do it.
Yeah, it's very different, but yeah, and so I guess I understand that way on that side, but also on the other side, I have, a successful father and successful uncles and brothers who, have navigated the business culture and the office politics, and that it's not that bad if you just but you just have to put yourself out there. You have to put yourself out there and make yourself available, and unluckily give up some time and things like that. So
sorry, go ahead, Jacqueline.
No, I was just gonna kind of build off of that. It's a dog eat dog world, and those office politics, they exist at any type of business, whether you're just starting out at a fast food restaurant or you're working at a major multimillionaire company. You're gonna experience that. And this class is called organizational effectiveness. It expands outside of the realm of the workplace too. You could probably say that there's politics at church between different organizations. Definitely. You can say that it happens within families or within sporting teams or whatever. There, you have to kind of fight for your place on the food chain.
Yeah. no, that's what my sister realized. Her and her boyfriend are not active in the church at all, but they're technically members because they've been baptized, but they don't ever go to church or anything like that. But that was kind of the reason. They just church and other things. I mean, luckily it's a lot like high school. You kind of have to put yourself out there to make friends and to be available and to make yourself out there. People aren't just going to walk up to you and kind of greet themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So how can someone be proactive in managing the office politics, power, and conflict?
I think for the politics portion, don't feed into it. Don't feed into the gossip. Don't feed into, if somebody's coming up to talk to you and complain, change the subject or,
Right.
redirect the conversation so that you're not polluting that workplace with more drama.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I definitely think there are ways to avoid it. You can't play into it and try to. I mean, I definitely do think you have to kind of gain respect and make sure if you're in a position of leadership that people are looking up to you. But I think there's ways to do it other than playing into the office politics.
Yeah.
I always like the phrase, say what you mean and then mean what you say. If you're going to have integrity in the workplace, you need to always follow up on what you said you're going to do, but then also not say something just to gain favor, in somebody else's eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So are there any gospel connections to this type of situation that would be pertinent?
Sure, you have to say what you mean and mean what you. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But really, I mean, if you are a person of integrity, like the gospel teaches you to be, and you're trying to work hard, you're trying to be self-sufficient and sincere and honest with your fellow men, then you're going to avoid a lot of the conflict and office politics that go on. It's not completely avoidable. And like I said, some conflict is good. But if you are trying to just always be that wholesome person that the gospel teaches us to be and to be Christ-like, you'll just avoid a lot of the problems that the world can fling at you.
Yeah, definitely. So are there any connections between this week's reading assignment and this case study? I know we've talked about it a little bit, but.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just that portion that talked about, conflict can be a driving force for good.
Yeah.
As long as it's done properly. And you have to extend that trust and trust others. I liked the part too that was talking about holding others accountable. That's something hard that, is hard to do, is to point at your peers and tell them to raise their bar so that the group can succeed. But,
right.
Yeah.
Sometimes that has to be done.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I guess I just thought about as I was reading, and then as we were going through this assignment, I thought about the election since it was so pertinent, and just that conflict. There's a lot of disagreement, but I mean, again, this could push us to the better. I feel like even in the reading, that's what it talks about, as Jacqueline has said as well, that this conflict that we're seeing could really push us to better, to be better. And so I think it'll be good. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting, but good. So that's mostly it, but we have the conclusion of the story. They do.
Oh, good.
And so this is a very interesting conclusion, and I got pretty close to guessing it in my paper. So
awesome.
Okay, so this is entitled Thomas Green, the rest of the story. So after McDonald's February 5th, 2008 email, Green took the offensive against his boss. He crafted a series of memorandums, emails, reports, and projections that exposed the inaccuracies and creative forecasting that Davis had put on his sheets. This data enabled Green to build some alliances with other marketing personnel who used the data to ultimately side with him. So everybody was picking sides, which I was pretty sure they were going to.
Yeah.
On April 4th, so just 2 months later, it was announced that Frank Davis was being moved laterally to an undefined special project.
Oh.
So he was he was being kind of pushed aside.
Shuffled out of there, yeah.
Yeah. However, Green's tactics for doing that, for kind of exposing him so kind of childishly, I guess, even though he was right, Green's tactics were seen as overly brutal by many in the company, and although he won the battle against his boss, his career was irreparably harmed. McDonald distanced herself from him, but she'd already started to do that. And by July of 2008, so that was 6 months later, Green announced he was resigning from his position to pursue full-time studies for an MBA.
Oh.
So then, at the very end, it gives this last kind of, I guess, thinking sentence. It says, "We can only speculate what would have occurred if Green had tried to help Davis work out the discrepancies and problems with forecasts. Perhaps both would have succeeded."
Yeah, I would think that. I agree with that they probably both would have been okay if they just worked together.
Yeah. I thought it was really. I was pretty sure that that's what was going to happen, is that Green was eventually going to leave. But the Davis part, that was interesting. I figured people would take Davis's side, but from what that said,
that's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was the office politics. Thomas was able to get in there and shuffle up everybody's, ruffle everybody's feathers. It's interesting because during the first 2-hour meeting, it said that they went over PowerPoints and putting together data. And so it's interesting that he went in and did a whole presentation about why Frank was wrong. I feel like it was completely out of spite based on all the tips, that Frank gave him.
Well,
that's crazy.
Well, and I in my paper, I talked about like Thomas Green, like, hey, like, because Davis was setting these really big sales goals in 2008, and Thomas was saying, oh, those are too lofty. And in my paper, I was like, well, I mean, foresight is 2020, but think about this. In 2008, that was the economic collapse, and so Thomas is right, but he's going at it a very bad way, and it sounds like he eventually really went after him. So
yeah,
that is all. Any last comments or anything like that?
Not regarding the case. Thanks for being the group leader. Yeah. I was trying to look at the next couple weeks because I had filled out that group leader sign up sheet.
Oh yeah.
And it had skipped lesson 10, which would be next week. But we do have a case study next week. It's the following week, the week of Thanksgiving, that I don't think we have to meet formally. Don't quote me on that. It looks like we just have to do discussion boards on the case.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know how that'll affect our order, but Maddie, are you able to be the group leader next week?
That's let me think. Sorry, I'm trying to think.
No, you're fine.
I think I should be able to. I will know though by like midweek, and I'll let you guys know if I can't. But I might be going out of town, but I might not be leaving till like Friday afternoon. So as of right now, I should be able to.
Okay. If you run into a problem, maybe just shoot Laura. I think she's next in the cycle.
Okay.
Shoot her an email and see if she'll do it.
Okay.
I don't know. I saw an email from Brianna right before we connected that she had to go to work this morning. So.
Yeah. And I'm I'm going to include her name in the kind of the case activity, even though she's not here, just because she sent us that email. So I'll also include Laura as well, because she was here for a little bit. I mean, she was driving, so I'm assuming that it just kind of cut off. So
yeah. Okay. Well, thanks again, Sam.